Hello, PascoMath grade 7 teachers. Today we're going to continue our learning around 7.RP.1.2, looking at part C of this standard. So 7.RP.1.2 says recognize and represent proportional relationships between quantities, and in this video we're going to focus on represent proportional relationships by equations. So for example, if the total cost T is proportional to the number N of items purchased at a constant price P, the relationship between the total cost and the number of items can be expressed as T equals Pn. So students do have previous knowledge from the standard. They were in Part B expected to read equations and find the unit rate. And now we're moving to when students are given the verbal descriptions of proportional relationships, they're going to be expected to create the equation in the form y equals mx. So let's talk about what the teacher should be doing. One thing is provide students with real-world proportional reasoning problems. This is something that's been consistent throughout this standard. Ask students to represent the stories as tables and graphs, and then using that student work, we can create equations that model the proportional relationship. And so then we have the story, the table, the graph, and the equation all present at the same time, and we can make connections between the different representations to make sure we're going for depth in our learning. Provide students with real-world proportional relationship problems presented as tables, graphs, and verbal descriptions, and have them write the equations that model those relationships. Provide opportunities for students to write about how they create equations that model proportional relationships. This could be through exit slips, do-nows, letters, journaling, anything like that that gets them writing about the math. So what the students are going to be doing, they need to model the proportional relationships presented as tables, verbal descriptions, and graphs in equation form. This is really looking at standard for mathematical practice 4, model with mathematics, where we take some situation and we mathematize it to make sense of it. They also should be justifying in writing the reasoning used to create an equation for a given proportional relationship expressed verbally. So again, this is a great opportunity for math practice 3. Construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So some misconceptions students might have. Some students might confuse the variables in equations when they try to express the proportional relationships, and some students will have difficulty with translating a verbal description to an equation. To address the misconceptions, it would be helpful to use letters closely represented to what the variables stand for, such as like T for tickets, or instead of just X always. And we're also going to have students model the situation with a picture or act it out. I think that definitely is helpful when we're trying to make sense of the math. And so if students are having difficulty with translating a verbal description of the equation, let's say they're trying to translate the situation of there's 4 times as many sodas as there are people. And so some students might go with 4S, because we said there's 4 times as many soda as people, so equals P. But then others might model it like this, and they might say, well, there's 4p equals s. And so those two different equations probably are sitting in your classroom, and you can actually say, okay, we have 2 different representations for this. One's right, one's not. We need to figure it out. And so if there's 4 times as many sodas as there are people, maybe you can act it out. So let's say that we have one person, like how many sodas should we have? And the answer would be 4. And so if we even plug in those points, if you have 2 people, how many sodas should you have? There should be 8. Connected to the table to allow them to realize that we have to multiply the number of people times 4 to get the amount of soda to represent that relationship correctly. And so, this is the one that we're going for. That mathematically doesn't work out. So again, have them come up, act it out, connect the equation back to the table, the graph, all the things they have experience with would be a good idea here. So that's it for 7.RP.1.2 Part C. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me or your regional specialist. And thank you for making PascoMath more awesome.